Impact segment tonight, new poll conducted by the Barna Group asked Americans about economics and Jesus. First question, do you think either capitalism or socialism aligns better with the teachings of Jesus? 24% say socialism, 14% capitalism. Question apparently too difficult for the rest of those asked. Which presidential candidate's policies align closest to the teachings of Jesus? 21% say Bernie Sanders, 11% Ted Cruz, 9% Hillary Clinton, 6% Donald Trump. Was that analyze Ebony Williams and Monica Crowley? The Trump numbers, no. I mean, Jesus would not be living in the Trump Tower surrounded by gold, and you know, he wouldn't.
Well,
so
but
come on, that's not
I don't
really
think
fair.
It applies to any presidential candidate ever. Jesus was a transcendent figure. You can't assign modern political
but Jesus himself
to
would not be living in the Trump Tower, so that's why I want to explain why that number is so low.
He was a humble carpenter.
Yes, and he had no aspirations of material things, Ebony. So that poll isn't as crazy as some people might think.
No, it made total sense to me, because a lot of people feel that the teachings of Jesus Christ were about the collective, right? And about the well-being of the collective is more important than the well-being of the individual.
Yeah, the well-being of the many. But you just said, said the word Christ. This poll did not assign religion. So Christ, if you call Jesus Jesus Christ, that means you're defining him as the Redeemer, the guy that ascended to heaven. Right. This one was Jesus the man, all right? And interestingly enough, the philosophy of Jesus was to reject materialism, to depend on other people for your well-being, and to give to the poor as much as you could.
Here's the key distinction, though. Jesus did not believe in government coercion to redistribute wealth or to demonize the wealthy. The biblical expression is the love of money is the root of evil. Not money itself, but the love of it, because it drives a wedge between you and God.
It creates a self-centered situation.
And remember that Jesus also said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God. So even Jesus acknowledged that there are earthly responsibilities, including that the tax man will always cometh, and that you do have to take care of that as well. But he believed in private charity. He believed in people taking care of each other, not through coercion, not through state force, for example.
What do you think?
That makes sense to me, but I also think for many that they feel like there's a moral issue around economics. There's this issue of many people having so little and so few people having a lot.
Well, that's what Bernie Sanders runs on.
Right. That's what he runs on.
It's morally wrong for the 1%ers, the billionaires.
Well, that's why he's so vocal in his praise of the current Pope, I believe. That's a place where he, really resonates, and that's what the Pope lives in a lavish,
although he himself does not live in the papal chambers.
No, he's not.
He lives in a much more modest thing. But the philosophy that Bernie Sanders espouses is not what Jesus, in my opinion, would be down with, current vernacular, because Bernie wants to take. Jesus never, ever took.
And that's
he wanted you to give.
That is correct. And also Bernie wants to use the full weight of the government in order to take and redistribute, because the government knows best.
So no matter how
Jesus
hard
was not a Robin Hood kind of figure
that Ebony or Monica or me, your Humber correspondent, work, Bernie feels that he has the authority, or should have the authority, to take from us, all right, to an extent that inflicts pain.
Injury, we would say in the law.
Because I don't want to pay more than 50% of my earnings to anyone.
Goes back to classic Marxism. So you talked about how he took his honeymoon not in Vegas, but in the Soviet Union.
That's right. And you see Powers' face? She was giving me jazz, and I hit the honeymoon, and she's out of here.
So communism was all about the vanguard, the ruling elite taking from the people to redistribute, and ultimately the state would wither away, but it's never worked that way in practice.
So I believe that this poll is accurate, that most people thinking about, well, Jesus, he'd probably be with Sanders because Sanders wants to redistribute to the poor, all right? But here's what I've done, and I shouldn't say this, but here's what I've done. When I die, which could be any time now because I'm eating a lot of sugar.
Just do it on the show for the ratings.
Most of my money will go to my charitable foundation.
That's great.
All right?
And you're giving it away voluntarily.
Right, so I'm trying to buy my way into heaven. That's the strategy. Frank Sinatra tried to do that.
It might work.
I'm not sure.
You have enormous leverage.
But Bernie wants to take more of that money that's earmarked for children and vets and all of that, so he can throw it away on government programs.
And the government's done such a great job
Bernie can't
managing it, right?
Right. So Bernie, get out of my face. I'm going to heaven. Well,
and
maybe
the other
not.
critical point is that what we know from socialism, the track record is pretty bad.
It's pretty
and
bad.
That it's an equal share of misery and poverty and oppression.
I agree with not criticizing and demonizing prosperity.
All right, ladies.
Absolutely.